Before we jump into the PHP, let's take a look at a practical example that we're going to run a regular expression on, and then we're going to port it over to PHP to see exactly how you would do so. What you see right here is the HTML for a tutorial on net.tutsplus.com. This is what I get for each submission from authors. There's one problem though. If we come right here, this element right here is responsible for applying the syntax highlighting. We have a WordPress plugin that will look for this and apply the necessary highlighting accordingly. However, in the last month or so, we've updated this. Rather than using a pre-tag, you simply use brackets with the name of the language within it like so. It's much cleaner and it works much more easily. So let's see how we can do a search and replace and get rid of all of these in one swoop. So you might be thinking, well, why don't you just search for that and replace it with Ruby like so? Well, let's try that. I'm going to replace all, and that seems to work, but if we scroll down just a bit, and as soon as we come to one where the class is different, remember, the class attribute refers to the language, so that's going to be different every time. So in order for that method to work, we would need to run this multiple times for every language that is declared on the page. So I'm going to backtrack, and let's see if we can do this a little bit smarter using regular expressions. I'm going to bring up my search and replace, and in most editors there is an option, maybe something you select, that allows you to use regular expressions. In mine, it's this star tool right here. So first, we're going to look for this whole string, and we know that this text right here can be a variable length. So I'm going to change it, and now we're going to use a period to represent anything, and we're going to look for one or more. But the problem is this gets a little confusing because it can go beyond the closing quotation mark. So here's a little trick, and this is something you'll find yourself using often. Let's use a character class, and I'm going to use a caret symbol within it, and what this means is not. It negates what's within it. So for example, if I were to open this up right here, this means look for any character that is an A, B, or C. That's all you're going to match. When we put a caret in it, it functions differently from when it's outside of it. For example, this means find an A, B, or C that occurs at the beginning of the string. Once we move it in here, we negate it. So we say, look for any character that is not an A, B, or C. So we can use this to our advantage. If I were to write a quotation mark right here, I can say, look for anything that is not that closing quotation mark, because as soon as we get to it, we know we're at the end of the attribute value. Now remember, this is looking for a single character. Look for any character. There's going to be more than one character, of course, so I'm going to use a plus sign, and that means look for one or more. Next, we need to be able to grab this value so that we can add it to the replace section. So I'm going to use a parentheses, like we learned in the previous chapter. And now I can replace it, and I can reference this value within parens by doing $1. So let's try it now. I'm going to hit replace all, and sure enough, that's been replaced with Ruby. If we scroll down, this one has been replaced with HTML. So if we're just a little bit smarter when we run our search and replace functions, we can save ourselves a great deal of time, even when doing day-to-day type work, as I'm doing here. So now we're going to take this exact lesson and we're going to port it over to a PHP script. So we'll do that in the next lesson.